A huge thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Stick around until the end of the video to learn more. Hey, what's going on, weavers? Tim here again, and in today's video we will be making a monkey's fist backhand impact tool. This is a closed loop design for maximum retention, and also I would like to say that these are made purely for fun and novelty, as well as the art of paracord crafting. Be responsible and be nice to each other out there. That being said, let's get into it. In terms of materials, I'm using orange paracord as my main color, with gray as the secondary. The core will be this 1.5 inch steel ball, and I will be using my monkey's fist speedy jig to make things a lot easier. To start this one off, I'm going to get my steel ball in the jig, and with my orange paracord, I'm going to tie a simple overhand knot and anchor the cord to the top right post. You don't have to do this, but this is what I like to do. Also, you want to have about 5 feet on the left side of the overhand knot. From there, I'm going to start wrapping my loops away from me in a clockwise fashion, and I'm going to make 8 passes. So just keep those passes nice and even and make sure they don't overlap. Once I've made my 8 passes going across, I'm going to stop at the bottom right post and make a 90-degree turn and start doing another 8 passes going across the middle of those first set of loops. Once again, keep them neatly stacked and not overlapping. After you've done that, just take a moment to ensure that you have 8 passes on all sides before doing the final set of passes. As for the final set, I've attached my fid to the end of the cord, and I'm going to do the last set of passes going through the outer passes on the sides and encompassing the second set. This set is going from the bottom to the top of the monkey's fist. So just continue doing this last set. For this part of the monkey's fist, you are wrapping the last set around the second set of passes using the fid to go under the sides of the first set of passes. Just make sure you don't overlap the cords or have any twists in them, as you'll have to undo everything to fix it later. Also, when using a fid, another thing to be careful of is not to snag the fid on any other areas of the paracord, as that can cause runs to happen in the cord and mess up the overall look of the monkey's fist. So just continue the process of the last set of loops, moving from the bottom to the top. So I am almost done the last set, but for the very last pass on the front, it's getting a little crowded, and I'm going to actually remove my monkey's fist from the jig and just do the last half of the last pass, and I'm going to finish it just like so. With that done, I'm going to do the first pass of tightening. Do not tighten the monkey's fist all the way. This is just an initial tightening to keep everything even and in line. I like to start tightening from the first set of loops and work my way out. I have an in-depth video on the tightening process, and I'll link that in the video cards. Next, I'm going to use my fid and hold the monkey's fist so that one terminal end is at the upper left and the other at the bottom right. With the right end on a fid, I'm going to pass it under the set of passes on the right and bring it up top. I'm then going to do the same thing on the other strand on a fid, and I'm going to take it under the set of passes on the front from the left to the right. So now we have both terminal ends coming out of the same area for a much better looking finished product. With that done, I'm going to do a second pass of tightening. So I plan on dipping this monkey's fist into hot water for a final tightening, so this last round of hand tightening doesn't have to be so tight that it gives you finger cramps. Just get the excess slack out, and it's okay if you can still move the passes a little when done. So to fully tighten the monkey's fist, I'm now going to dip the entire thing in hot water from the tap. Do not boil the monkey's fist on the stove, as I find doing so is too hot and it actually shrinks the paracord far too much. You'll end up with gaps in the passes. So this is just scalding hot water from the tap, dip it in and let it soak for a few seconds, then let it air dry. Also be sure to use a tiki cup to appease the paracord gods so that everything comes out perfect. And it looks like it worked, as we have what I think is a very respectable monkey's fist. Next, we're going to tie a diamond knot. I'm going to make a counterclockwise loop with the right strand and lay it on top of the other. Then with the left strand, I'm going to go under the right, back in front, and then under the middle section of the loop. Now with the right side strand, I go past the base strand up top and then go through the opening in the middle. Going to do the same with the left strand, going counterclockwise, past the base strand and through the middle, then gather both strands and cinch up that diamond knot. From there, you want to move your diamond knot as close to the monkey's fist as possible. Just cinch the excess cord in between the two knots out the terminal end sides. Using a knotter's tool for these kinds of tasks is great, as it can save you a lot of sore fingers. To create our 4-strand braid, I've got my secondary gray strand, and I'm going to lay the midpoint of that in between the two orange strands. From there, I'm going to cross over the orange strands with the right strand crossing up top and the left strand crossing below. Then with the gray strands, I'm going to cross them over the orange with the left strand crossing over on the top and the right strand crossing over on the bottom. We're going to repeat this process over and over to weave our 4-strand braid. For my particular monkey's fist, I wove 35.5 inches or about 90 centimeters, but you can customize this as you like, but it will vary the amount of paracord you will use. Once I have enough braid, I'm going to use a hemostat to clip one set of the gray and orange strands. Now we're going to splice our braid to make the closed loop. This part is a little tricky, but I've got my gray strand on a fid, and I'm going to start about 4 braids up, and I'm simply going to follow one of the gray strands going towards the monkey's fist. Continue and go through the 4 braids and make your way to the start of the braid. The easiest way to think about this process is that you're simply doubling up the cords on the 4-strand braid. So you have 2 gray and 2 orange. Each of those terminal ends is going to follow one of those 4 strands, and you just have to match the colors. I would say the trickiest part is finding exactly where to start the splice, but you'll figure it out once you get there. It's not too difficult to figure out where to start the splice so that it looks good. I'm going to repeat the process with the orange strand, so do the exact same thing and follow one of the orange strands about 4 knots up. So it's kind of hard to tell you exactly which strand to follow, but if you look at the braid and where you want the splice to start, just choose the strand that is closest to the terminal end, and you will have to do some creative problem solving here. The first 2 strands that have been spliced should end up on the same side right next to each other. Once you've done the first 2, it's just a matter of repeating the process 2 more times with the other set of strands. This will get a little more difficult as you add strands, making the braid tighter, so I suggest using a knotter's tool to make some space to splice the cord through with your fids. I would highly suggest a marlin spike or knotter's tool for this process of splicing, as it can get quite difficult to get the fid through the braid when more cords have been added. It can get quite annoying to try to force the fid through the braids. If you don't have a knotter's tool or marlin spike, but you have a smaller, thinner fid, you can always cut the end of your cord to a point and use the smaller fid, which would then be easier to push through the braids. If you don't have fids, you can also, as a last resort, use a lighter to melt the ends into fids. With a jet lighter, you can carefully melt a 1-inch section of the terminal end and let it harden, which would make a makeshift fid. I have a dedicated video tutorial on how to do this, and I'll have that linked in this video. When finished, you should have 2 strands coming out of each side of the 4-strand braid, just above the monkey's fist, like so. Next, we're going to hide the splice with some crown knots. Holding the monkey's fist like so, I'm going to put a bend in one of the cords, and then with the following cord, bend it around and over the previous cord. Once again, bend the next cord around and over the previous. As for the last cord, after you've bent it over, put the terminal end through the first bend. So we've now tied the crown knot, and we're going to tighten it up. We're going to continue this process going over the spliced section and all the way up until we've reached the start of the splice. Once we reach the top, we're going to finish the last crown knot by taking one of the terminal ends and going under the intersection where the gray and orange cross over next to it. Then pull the strand through up top. Finish this by going through the whole way around for all 4 strands. You don't have to use hemostats, but I'm just using them to keep my fingers out of the way. After that, just tighten and cinch up the knot. Also, if you notice that one of my orange strands had a bit of extra cord on it, don't worry about that. I just ran it a little short. The measurements have been adjusted properly at the beginning. So just take your time and cinch up the cord and tighten up that last knot as much as possible. And finally, I'm going to snip the excess cords and melt them with my jet lighter. And rather than just press down on the melted ends and have them exposed, I'm going to push them into the middle of that spliced area while the cord is still molten, so that when it hardens, it'll help stick inside the knot. Now be careful when doing this as to not undo the knot, and also use a fid or knotter's tool, and do this for all 4 strands. And there we have it, weavers, a closed loop monkey's fist impact tool. I hope you all have enjoyed this tutorial and learned something new.